Now where's that Jim Bob Walton off to? Sorry, I mean James Robert, but that nickname sure has stuck. Besides, he's too busy dreaming to mind. That's Jim Bob, always with his head in the clouds. And his actor, David W. Harper, chased happiness but in a totally different way. I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick, here to revisit the ambitious Jim Bob Walton's actor, David Harper. How did he contribute to the end of the Waltons? What value of his own did he have to betray to play the part? And where on earth did he end up? We've got all that and more, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so you can say some good nights with us and hear more about our favorite stars. But without further ado, let's get to it. Early life. Our good old boy David was born in Abilene, Texas on October 4th, 1961. This isn't exactly close to the gilded life of sunny Hollywood, but he had a big inspiration right at home. You see, David is the son of actor Paul Harper. If that sounds familiar, Tennessee native Paul was a film actor who starred in Knight Rider and Run Angel Run, but most famously is probably his appearance in 1969's The Wild Bunch. Pretty much the quintessential one last job heist movie. In The Wild Bunch, Paul played the character Ross, and he's a familiar face in a lot of programs that take place out west. Some favorites like Bonanza and The Waltons. And sadly, Paul Harper died several years ago, and it was David who acted as caretaker to him.
Thanks, Daddy. Good luck, son.
A Christmas miracle. It's not uncommon for actors to require some, or heck, even a lot of time finding their footing. The incredible Alan Rickman was 42 when he blasted his way into the limelight with Die Hard. And that iconic voice of Morgan Freeman wasn't mainstream until he was 50 with Street Smart.
I will show you the streets, brother.
But David didn't have to wait for his big break, since The Waltons is the first thing on his resume. Well, almost. First, he landed the role of Jim Bob in The Homecoming: A Christmas Story. Didn't even have Waltons in the name, but that's how the show got its start, and that's how David got his. The Homecoming aired on December 19th, 1971, competing against pretty stiff odds. But to everyone's shock, it was very well received, and it was enough for CBS to order a full series follow-up. With this big extension, David was recruited to reprise his role, and he wasn't the only one. All the child actors and Grandma Ellen Corby stayed the same, but the actors for Olivia Walton and Grandpa Zeb were different. Sticking to Waltons Mountain. David has gone by a few names in his life and career, but he's gone by Jim Bob the most. It started in 1971 with The Homecoming and immediately followed that same year with The Waltons. That legendary show ended in 1981, but that was not the end of David's Jim Bob. First, we got the TV movie A Wedding on Waltons Mountain. And that same year, we see Jim Bob again for A Day for Thanks on Waltons Mountain. The middle 90s were jam-packed with special Walton reunions, namely a Walton Thanksgiving reunion, a Walton wedding, and Walton Easter, all of which David was Jim Bob. In fact, 8 items in his filmography of 12 projects are Walton related.
The childhood on the Waltons was great because having a movie studio as a playground is like the ultimate fantasy.
Based on a true story. The Waltons is rooted pretty heavily in reality, which is always more remarkable than fiction. It all began with the 1961 book Spencer's Mountain by Earl Hamner Jr., who played a huge role in creating the show. Hamner was one of 8 kids and went on to have a few kids of his own, so big families are a common thread of his stories. One of Earl's siblings was named James Hamner. This is the very real person who provided the inspiration for James Robert, aka Jim Bob Walton. That's thanks to the fact that James was the youngest of that 8-sibling bunch. Earl, of course, is personified on screen as John Boy. The real James lived in his childhood home almost all of his life. David's portrayal made the humble man a local celebrity, aided by him living in the house that started it all. James served in the Army, worked as a bank manager, then a systems analyst, and retired in 2000. Sadly, he only got to enjoy 4 years of quiet life before passing in 2004. Rest in peace, original Jim Bob.
What's it feel like when you watch the show?
I gotta tell you, most of the time we sit around and cry.
Is it that bad?
No, David, it's that good.
Two of a kind. Even in a big family, Jim Bob Walton stood out for that infectious enthusiasm for everything. Except paying attention, but hey, he had to focus on what interested him. That came mostly from David Harper himself, who said once he played Jim Bob as himself. He could and did play music just like his on-screen persona. Not all their hobbies quite line up, but the spirit of hands-on doing things is definitely consistent between the both.
I think I broke my knuckles on your dumb chin.
Like David's love of jigsaw puzzles. I can't really see Jim Bob sitting down to do much of those, but they did both keep busy with their hands. And isn't car restoration just a big metal jigsaw puzzle, right? Both of them also daydreamed. Though Jim Bob daydreamed about the future, while David thought about the past. The former actor is a certified American Civil War history enthusiast. As for their shared love of music, David is more of a Led Zeppelin guy, and with amps a thing, he would play as loud as possible. But the duo shared another big similarity too. After Jim Bob is nearly crushed by a car he's working on, he thinks about becoming a minister. David is on the record saying, quote, "My passion is my relationship with my Heavenly Father." Life off Waltons Mountain. Anyone who lands a long-time TV job knows that their career may always be relegated to that one job. The Waltons is certainly the majority of David's work, but it's not everything. Some other noteworthy titles include The Blue and the Gray, 315, and Fletch, starring Chevy Chase.
Can I borrow your towel for a sec? My car just hit a water bubble.
As of 2011, David Harper is retired from acting, ending a career of exactly 40 years. So where is he now? Well, David ended up getting himself an education studying business. Once he was ready to find work outside of acting, his TV brother Eric Scott reached a dry spell in his career too. Eric ended up managing a big shot California parcel delivery service. So what do you do when your TV sibling needs a job? You hook him up, of course. So the high-flying Jim Bob now became a truck driver. So even the least Walton-related job he could get was also through the Waltons. David Harper today. Private but public, on demand, pretty much sums up David's life. If this video inspires you to look more into David Harper, be advised. There is an art dealer with the same name, and our Jim Bob has had to clarify in the past, nope, that's not him. Although he does appreciate artwork, so maybe he'll take that up in the future. And although not art, David is writing. David hopes to get his done within the next few years, so keep an eye out. But in general, David is all about his privacy, saying he is open to acting again, but it's not at the top of the list. That spot belongs to visiting Germany and mastering the German language. But he is still in touch with his Walton siblings, and he does enjoy the events related to the show. David says, quote, "Looking back, I realize we grew up surrounded by adults, but I'm pleased to have been on the show."
When we weren't doing anything, we would get in there and be in our own little world.
A lot of times when we look into former sitcom stars, some of their lives have turned tragic. And we're just so pleased that David W. Harper seemed to have defied those odds. But before we say goodnight to Jim Bob, I want to hear from you. Who was your favorite Walton sibling? Did you prefer the Waltons or Little House on the Prairie? Do you remember David W. Harper from Fletch or from anything else? Get in the comments and tell me all things Jim Bob Walton. And if you enjoyed our video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you catch our next deep dive. But from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching, and good night, viewers.
Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.